All right, last section of chapter 4 is section 4.5. Now we're actually solving these rational equations. Again, what does rational mean? Fraction. Yep, rational means we're working with fractions. So first thing I want to look at is this example on the front page of your notes. I want you to rewrite this example so that you can work with it. So we have 1/2 x plus 2/5 equals 9/10. Okay. What do you notice about this compared to what we've been dealing with the past week or so? What's in this? We have fractions, but we've been dealing with those the whole week. This time we have an actual equal sign. We have equations. Okay, so we are actually solving equations for some value of x. So our answers today are going to look like x equals some number. Okay, so the way we do that is raise your hand if you hate fractions. Don't like dealing with them. Raise them higher because I know you hate them. Okay, first thing we want to do is get rid of them. Okay, so looking at the fraction or the denominators I have right now are 2, 5, and 10. I want to pick a common denominator. We're going to get in the habit of writing CD down. Common denominator that all three of those can go into. Does everyone agree that our common denominator can be 10? Okay, all three of those denominators can go into 10. Good. So what we do to get rid of these fractions is we're going to multiply every single term by that common denominator. How many terms do I have?
3.
I have 3 terms. So I'm going to multiply every single term by that common denominator 10. So what happens is we look at each term by itself. How many times does 2 go into 10? 5. So that 10 turns to a 5. So now I have 1x times 5 is 5x. Look at the next fraction. How many times does 5 go into 10? 2. So we have 2 times 2 is 4. Then we do the same thing with the other fraction. Do you agree that these 10s just cancel each other out? Okay. So we're just left with 9. So now does this equation look familiar? All we got to do is solve, right? How do I get x by itself? Subtract 4. So I have 5x equals 5. What do I do from here? Divide by 5. X equals 1. That's your answer. So we are solving for actual values of x. So let's look at a couple of different examples. You see this example on example 1a. So we have 2/x plus 5 equal to 4. First thing I want to do is I want to turn that 4 into a fraction. How can I turn that 4 into a fraction?
Put it
over 1. Okay, now we're looking at 2 fractions. What do I need to find? Common denominator. Get in the habit of writing CD down. Common denominator. We want to write our common denominator down so it's not just in our head, we're actually looking at it. Okay? What is my common denominator if my denominators are x plus 5 and 1?
1.
Does this denominator have a 1?
Yeah. 1x.
What does this denominator not have?
5.
X plus 5. So our common denominator is x plus 5. Now, a lot of you said 1. Yes, 1 is also included in there, but what is 1 times anything?
1.
Itself, right? So it doesn't change. So our common denominator is x plus 5. So once we find our common denominator, what do I do? How do we get rid of the fractions? Multiply it all by x plus 5. If you are writing a binomial, which means 2 terms, I want you to put it in parentheses, and I'll explain why in a second. Looking at that first fraction, 2/x plus 5, what cancels?
The x plus 5.
The whole thing does, right? X plus 5 is gone, so what's left? 2 equals On the right, does anything cancel out? No, because it's just 1, right? So what's left is we multiply. 4 times x is 4x. 4 times 5 is 20. So do you see why I wrote this in parentheses now? Because that reminds us that we have to distribute and multiply. Okay, so how do I solve what's left?
Subtract 20 from both sides.
Subtract 20. So I have negative 18 equals 4x. What do I do from here?
Divide.
Divide by 4. X equals. Now, we do have a fraction. Can I simplify this fraction? What's a number that goes into 18 and 4?
6.
2, right? What's negative 18 divided by 2? Negative 9 over 4 divided by 2? 2. That's our answer. So you always want your answer in simplest form. You can write your answer as, you can leave it like this, or you can write it as a mixed number, whatever works. Okay, but I would just leave it like that. I want you to go ahead and try 1B. Go ahead and try 1B. Okay, on this one, what should we do first?
Make the 2 fraction.
Yep, 2 over
1.
1. What do we need to look for next?
GCF.
Close, common denominator.
Common denominator.
Common denominator, which is kind of the same thing. What is the common denominator if my denominators are x minus 7 and 1? X minus 7. Yep. So what do I do with that common denominator? Multiply it how many times? To both terms. Yep. On that first fraction here, what happens? The x minus 7's cancel, so I'm left with 1 equals, where did you get that from? Yep. Take 2 times x, which is 2x. 2 times negative 7, negative 14. Now it's just algebraic problem, 2-step equation. How do we solve? Add 14. 15 equals 2x from here. Divide by 2. X equals, right, can I simplify 15 over 2? No. If you put 7.5, I would accept that too. Okay, but you can just leave them as fractions. Now we're going to look at example 3. So, looking at that example there, what do you notice? There's more, right? We want to find a common denominator always. What's my common denominator going to be? I agree with you. X plus 2 is going to be involved.
And x minus 2.
We need both of them, right? So x plus 2, x minus 2 is my common denominator. Okay, we need to account for everything that's in the denominator. So once we have our common denominator, what do I do? Multiply it by the whole thing, right? So everything is getting multiplied by the whole common denominator. Every term. Okay. So taking it one term at a time, looking at this term, what cancels out? X plus 2 cancels, so what am I left with?
1.
Right, we're going to distribute that 1, but if we distribute that 1, remember it just stays itself, right? X minus 2. What cancels out in our second term? X minus 2, what's left? Yep, so plus X plus 2 equals, what cancels out for our last term? Everything, right? So what's left? 4. Again, it's just solving. So on the left side, I'm going to combine like terms. What's x plus x? 2x. What's negative 2 plus 2? Do you agree those just cancel each other out? Okay, so we have 2x equals 4. What's the last step? Divide by 2, x equals 2. So understanding no matter what it looks like, when we see an equation, we are going to solve it the same exact way every single time. Okay? All right, let's jump down to number 4a. 4a looks like x plus 6 over x minus 3 equals 2x over x minus 3. What do we want to do? Yep, if it helps, yep, change that into a fraction by putting it over 1. Now we find a common denominator.
X minus 3.
Does everyone agree with x minus 3? Okay. What do I do with that common denominator?
Times multiply it by the 3 in the top.
To everything, right? So times x minus 3 times x minus 3 times x minus 3. Take everything one at a time. Here's my first fraction. Does anything cancel out?
No.
Nope. So what do we do on the top?
Oh,
We got to distribute. X times x is
x squared.
x squared. X times negative 3 is
Negative 3x.
negative 3x. What cancels out in the second one?
X minus 3.
X minus 3 cancels. I'm left with 6. What about our last one? X minus 3 is gone, so what's left? 2x. What do you notice about this, what we have left, compared to what we had left on the other ones?
X is on both sides.
X is on both sides, and what else?
Oh.
We have an x squared. Right. When we have an x squared, we want to get everything equal to 0. So how do I get it equal to 0?
Factor.
We have to get it equal to 0 first before we factor.
2x.
Yep, we're going to subtract 2x on both sides. I'm going to ask you something. Why did I put the 2x underneath the negative 3x?
Because that's the
Matches.
Those are the matches, right? Those are the like terms. So on this side, I have x squared, negative 3x minus 2x.
negative 5x.
Negative 5x plus 6 equals what?
0.
0. Yep. Now we can do what?
Factor.
Factor. What are factors of 6? 1, 6, 2, and 3. Which one of those is going to get us to add up to negative 5?
1 and 6
Oh,
make 6 negative.
Okay, if I do that, I agree with you, I'd get negative 5, but if I multiply those together, am I going to get positive 6? No. So what do we need to do? It's going to be 2 and 3, and I change both of them. Yep, because if I multiply 2 negatives, is that going to give me a positive 6? Yes. So how do I write these two as factors?
X minus 2. X minus 3.
X minus 2, x minus 3 still equal to 0. How do I solve this?
set them equal to 0.
Yep, set them both separately equal to 0. So I have x minus 2 equals 0 and x minus 3 equals 0. So solve. What do I get for my first one? X equals 2 and x equals 3. Jump. So when we're solving rational equations, what do we need to look for? Common denominator. What would my common denominator be? X plus 5. What do I do with that common denominator? Multiply it to the top. So multiply by x plus 5. Multiply by x plus 5. What cancels out on the first one?
X plus 5.
Yep, so what's left? X squared equals,
25.
right, because these cancel out, so I'm left with 25. How do I solve this?
Square root.
Yes, you could subtract 25 and go through all the factoring, or you can just think, I know I could take the square root to get x by itself. So what's the square root of 25? 5. What do I need with that? How many answers are going to be in a square root? 2, so I need positive and negative. Yep. So x equals positive 5, x equals negative 5.